Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage while always betting on Black. Back once again with part 5 of our audacious and groundbreaking Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we're going to be chronicling the life, legacy, and, of course, work of the first president of Nigeria, considered the father of Nigerian independence and nationalism, Nnamdi Azikiwe. So if you're watching, family, make sure you hit the subscribe and the like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Make sure you hit the notification bell as well. The future videos you're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. And, of course, the Beacon Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, in the home of course, African-centered news and information. So definitely want you all to tap in, be part of this conversation. And part of this reason why we're doing this series, brothers and sisters, was having a conversation with some of my Pan-African brothers, Brother Dwayne Omawale, who you all know is a resident historian and political expert, political analyst here at Beacon Network and Lumumba Speaks. But speaking with, of course, Brother Beacon and Brother Jabril African, we talked about how most of our people who adhere to Pan-Africanism, or at least open to some of the concepts and ideas of Pan-Africanism, typically are unaware of the history of the movement, but also some of the key figures and leaders in the movement. So decided to put together this 120-part series, as I stated before, family. The 120-part series came from the myriad of Pan-Africanists that I acknowledged in my dissertation. And so I counted them out and said, wow, it's 120. So we're going to be doing a 120-part series, Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future. And today we're going to, of course, be chronicling the life, legacy, and work, most importantly, the work of the Nnamdi Azikiwe family. If you're familiar with Nnamdi Azikiwe, put a 1 in the chat. If you're not familiar with the Nnamdi Azikiwe, put a 2 in the chat. So once again, if you're familiar with President Azikiwe, the great ancestor, put a 1 in the chat. If you're unfamiliar with Nnamdi Azikiwe, put a 2 in the chat, family. And then, of course, we're going to get the conversation started momentarily. But just want to make sure that if you are watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Tell your friends about the platform. This is one of the few serious Pan-African platforms on social media. I do know that, but Omawale Africa is a serious Pan-African. Some people that I'm connected with who know him stated that he's taking a step back for, I think, family issues, which we all understand. But definitely, family, support this channel. We're on the road to 10,000, but we can't get there without your help and support. Definitely make sure you're tapping in and sharing this platform with your friends and family, because this is a space where I think we can all learn and grow, but also be able to take what we discuss and go out into our communities and make our communities better. Ashe, Black Power. So with that being said, family, as you all know, the link is in the description. I will put the link in the chat momentarily. But just want to go over some of the ground rules here at Lumumba Speaks before we get the conversation started. As you all know, diversity of thought is welcome. So even though this is a Pan-African platform, diversity of thought is welcome. You could be on the left, you could be on the right, you could be right down the middle, and we're willing to have a conversation with you. Respectful dialogue, not a debate. Because I think the goal is to learn and grow together. So there have been times where brothers and sisters have come on the platform and they've been educated me on some things and vice versa. And that's the type of community we want to create. We want to co-create a learning space. And we do that by having respect for all people and their perspectives, as long as they're factual. But we'll get to that momentarily. Number 2, no racial epithets. No epithets of any kind are allowed on this platform. We believe, of course, that this is a space of Black empowerment. We believe in the 3 N's of Black power: self-respect, self-defense, and, of course, last but not least, self-determination. So we want to respect ourselves as African people and make sure that what we're doing lasts for as long as the sun shines and the river flows. Number 3, facts over feelings, family. So if we're having a conversation, there may be a time when you disagree with someone. That's no problem, right? We learn and grow by challenge and support. But we also want to make sure that what we're attacking the argument and not the person. So facts over feelings is always important. And then, of course, last but not least, no fundamentally false statements. And I state this ad nauseum on every platform, that you could believe. You could be of the ilk, right? You could be part of the legion of the sycophants that believe that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player who ever played. However, if you were to state LeBron James is the greatest basketball player who ever played because Michael Jordan only won 3 championships, that is a fundamentally false statement. Then, of course, I will tap in and say, hey, we're going to have to square things away because you're making a claim that's patently false. So just want to make you aware of that. And then, of course, last but not least, our mission here at Lumumba Speaks is neither to exonerate or vilify. Lumumba Speaks and Bequaline Network is neither to exonerate or vilify, but to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has previously been accepted as fact. So appreciate you all being here, family, for part 5 of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we honor the leaders of the past to make a better world for African people today. And today we're going to review the life, legacy, and work of the first president of Nigeria, considered the father of Nigerian nationalism and independence, none other than Nnamdi Azikiwe. So just make sure we give a virtual shout out, or virtual applause, or virtual give thanks for the great ancestors. Nnamdi Benjamin Azikiwe was born 16 November 1904. He's referred by many as the Zeke of Africa. He was a Nigerian politician, statesman, and a revolutionary leader who served as the third and first Black Governor General of Nigeria from 1960 to 1963, and as the first president of Nigeria during the first Nigerian Republic, 1963 to 1966. He is widely regarded as the father of Nigerian nationalism, as well as one of the major driving forces behind the country's independence in 1960. Also, Azikiwe was well-traveled. He moved to the United States, where he was called Ben Azikiwe, and attended Storer College, Columbia University, the University of Pennsylvania, and Howard University. He was extremely influenced by Marcus Messiah Garvey, who we would get to later in this series. Marcus Garvey's views on Pan-Africanism, emphasizing the empowerment of Africans and the redemption of Africa by Africans. This made Zeke question the legitimacy of colonialism in Africa and was inspired by Garvey's call for the liberation of Africa from colonial governments. At a time when Nigeria was still a collection of desperate regions, identities, and local units, Azikiwe started canvassing for Nigerian independence and for the creation of a de-ethnicized, de-tribalized sense of Nigerian nationalism and patriotism. Nnamdi Azikiwe's probably major claim to fame, and what led to his popularity and power, was the creation of the West African Pilot, which was a newspaper launched in Nigeria by, of course, Nnamdi Azikiwe, known as Zeke, in 1937. I think my grandfather was born in 1935, so history here, right? It was dedicated to fighting for independence from British colonial rule. It is most known for introducing popular journalism within Nigeria. The main focus of the paper was to promote Nigerian independence from colonial rule. The paper was the paper's quality and professionalism led to it ascending to the top of the media industry in Nigeria at the period, during a time in which most papers pandered to colonial authorities or ethnocentric interests. Azikiwe's paper provided a lively mix of radical politics and gossip, plus a woman's page, which was highly popular. So we always talk about making sure we're including sisters in the struggle. This is something that he was able to do. The newspaper played a key role in the spread of racial consciousness and nationalistic ideas in the interior of Nigeria. Its motto was "Show the light, and the people will find the way." Azikiwe personally edited the newspaper from 1937 to 1947. So what we're going to really seek to engage here, and the question, I'm going to put the link in the chat, is, does the power of the pen still matter today for African people? Should we utilize media, right? We know here in the States, we talk about some of the great African-American newspapers. I think of the Chicago Defender, which was what the impetus, the catalyst for the Great Migration, right? We think of newspapers in Baltimore, Pittsburgh. We talk about the North Star. Does the pen still matter when we talk about creating an African world that is beneficial for African people? So does the power of the pen still matter? That is the question, family. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. The press. So that is the question. Does the pen, and we're not talking about the penitentiary, family, but does the pen still have power, right? And we're talking about, of course, echoing, remembering, learning from the work of our Pan-African brothers and sisters in the past, our ancestors in the past, to make a better world for African people in the future, today and in the future. So the question is, does the pen still have power? Does the pen still have the ability to galvanize people, to educate people, to provide a level of racial consciousness that allows us to do the work that's needed and necessary to make the world better for African people today? That is the question, family. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Hope you all could tap in and be part of the conversation. Snapshot Reviews, appreciate you, brother. You're a frequent contributor to the show. I'll try and log in a few minutes. Appreciate it. So that is the question, family. Of course, we're highlighting the life legacy, but most importantly, the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe, of course, and he was considered one of the fathers of Nigerian independence. Well-schooled. Even when he was in graduate school, he taught classes on African history. And he was a hell of an athlete. He actually petitioned the colonial authorities to participate in the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles under the Nigerian flag. They did. I don't believe they got back to him, or at least in a timely manner accepted. But he was an athlete as well. He played, of course, American football. So well-rounded brother, highly educated, skilled organizer, politician, athlete, a true Renaissance man. I think it's a shame that he isn't talked about enough in Pan-African circles and Black Power circles, but we're going to make sure that we center his work, his legacy, and his name on the show today. So once again, family, this is part five of our groundbreaking and audacious Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we're chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to make a better world for African people in the present and future. And so today we're chronicling the life and the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria, the first Black governor of Nigeria. And his claim to fame that led to prominence was the power of the pen, right? He created the West African pilot. There was some literature I read that stated that he co-created the West African pilot with Kwame Nkrumah, right? But either way, they used this, right? This newspaper, of course, it was a radical newspaper that called for African independence, Nigerian independence, right? It was Pan-African in scope, right? He was influenced by the teachings of Marcus Messiah Garvey and wanted to have a free and redeemed Africa. And we know this paper didn't pander to the colonial authorities or wasn't ethnocentric in nature like many of his contemporaries were at the time, the contemporary papers were at the time. And so we see truly this Pan-African impetus on focusing on what was good for the collective of African people, particularly in Nigeria, rather than just one particular ethnic group or seeking to appease the colonial authorities to have some crumbs from the colonial master's table. So definitely something that's important. But the question is, family, does the pen still have power? Can the written press still have the power to galvanize African people to do the work that's needed necessary to free ourselves and, of course, restore ourselves to our traditional greatness? Because if we think about historically in Pan-African movements, we're talking about the West African pilot. We could think of The Messenger, of course, by A. Philip Randolph. Even though he wasn't Pan-African, we could think of the Crisis magazine, founded by W.B. Du Bois, while he was in the NAACP. We think of Marcus Garvey's Negro World newspaper. We think of the Organization of African American Unity, which we all know was created by Malcolm X. We think of the Black Backlash newspaper, right? So we see this history of using the written press, the written word, to, of course, reach out to our people. But the question is, those are all our examples from the 20th century, right? We know going into the later 20th century, these weren't politically oriented, but we saw Ebony, Essence, Jet, Chicago Defender, right? Baltimore Courier, I believe, is another African American newspaper. But now we're in a space where most things are digital now, right? Most newspapers, even we talk about, predominant newspapers, USA Today, New York Times, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, they have even gone more so online due to what people not reading actual physical paper. And so the question that we have is, does the pen still have power? Can the pen still galvanize Black people, lead to a heightened level of racial consciousness in which it invokes us to engage in acts of political, social, and economic self-determination? right? To restore ourselves to our traditional greatness. So that is the conversation. That is the question for today, family, because this leadership series isn't simply to romanticize leaders of the past. It's to study them and then, of course, interrogate their work and use what they've done to make the world better for African people in the future. So there's a method to the madness here, family. But once again, tap in, be part of the conversation here at Lumumba Speaks and Bleak Line Network. As you all know, Bleak Line Network is the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African Center news and information. And definitely want to hear from you all regarding your thoughts, keyword, your thoughts on the Pan-African Leadership Series, Part 5, where we're chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of the Nnamdi Azikiwe family. So make sure you tap in, be part of the conversation. And the question that we have is, does the pen still have power? We're not talking about the penitentiary, right? We're talking about the power of the written word, particularly in the media, in the press. So tap in, family, be part of the conversation. I definitely don't want to talk ad nauseum. Might have diarrhea of the mouth. So tap in, be part of the convo. Once again, if you're familiar with Nnamdi Azikiwe, put a 1 in the chat. If you're unfamiliar with Nnamdi Azikiwe, put a 2 in the chat, because we definitely want to hear from people. Either or, we love brothers and sisters to be part of the platform, and of course, learn as well. But a snapshot, what's the word?
Ooh, good evening. How you doing? You all right?
I'm doing quite all right.
Does the pen still have power today? I think when you write things down, it always becomes more powerful. It always becomes like a bit of a first step towards bringing about some sort of action. But I think in today's society, or where we are as a people today, it's about resources, man, and what is it you can leverage and tap people into to make that pen effective. Because from what I can sort of like understand in terms of history and when it has been used, it's always been around some sort of negotiation. I guess it just depends on what it is you're trying to achieve through doing it. What do you think?
Say that one more time.
I think it depends. Like, does the pen still have power today? Correct. I think it depends on what it can leverage.
Okay.
Right. And what is it that you're trying to? What do you have the power to leverage for, or what is it that you're fighting for? And I think for us as a people globally, like the pen needs to be used first of all to put down pen to paper. What is the actual plan? And then what is it? How are we then using this pen to then leverage these resources to bring this about? And I just don't think we've figured that out yet.
Got you. Okay.
You know, that's just like the way I've seen it sort of like being used before. And you have to remember as well, like traditionally, our people are oral. They're not. They're like didn't really. Like, you know,
this is true. This is very true.
They didn't write things down, and I think that might have been to our detriment because there isn't really equally accessible access to information of what came before. Like, you have to know people that know that and trust that they're telling you the truth. But you know, I just think in this society with like everything just moving at the speed of the internet, basically. To get people's attention is like, I don't know, man. They're not really sitting down to just really sit down and read things, are they, these days? You know?
I got you.
Yeah.
Understood. So let me ask you this. Were you familiar with Nnamdi Azikiwe?
No, I wasn't.
Wow. Get out of here. Okay.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
And to be honest, I caught the recording of your last session, and I think Mr. Sandman said he did his homework before coming onto the show, and that's what I'm going to do now. So going forward, when you announce the next one, I'm going to spend some time to actually do some private research on them, and then I'll come to the session with that.
Okay.
That knowledge.
That's good. That's good. And you could go on the YouTube channel, and if you hit live, you'll see that these shows that are coming up. Right. Cool. So our next live will be on Ella Jo Baker. Many people may be unaware who Ella Jo Baker was, but she was one of the co-creators of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. right? And she argued that the SCLC's concept of leadership based on this singular charismatic leader, not only was it ineffective and it wouldn't lead to a long-term movement in organization, but also would get somebody killed. And of course, the individual that disagreed with her turned out to be Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The second issue is Ella Jo Baker argued that if you build people up and you help create strong young people, strong people don't need leaders. They can lead themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot that we're going to unpack when we talk about Queen Mother Ella Jo Baker, but just want to let you know Ella Jo Baker is who we'll be chronicling next. So her life, work, and legacy. So if you want to kind of do some cursory reading on her, I think you'll be able to contribute to the conversation more in depth.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. But what do you think? Does the pen still have power in your opinion?
That is a hell of a question. I think I have to preface my answer, right? I think the pen has power for people who are seeking information.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I would make the presumption that, Brother Snapshot, you are someone who's intellectually curious.
Yes.
Right. So someone who's intellectually curious, great, because you're looking for it. My question is, does the pen still have power for individuals who aren't intellectually curious, by people who are intellectually indolent? How do we galvanize them to actually develop a sense of racial consciousness, and then do the work that's needed and necessary to help restore our people to our traditional greatness? And so I think that's where, the rubber meets the road. People who are intellectually curious, that's no problem. What about individuals that are not?
All right, so let me ask you this. Do you think we've got time to wake them up? Because I don't think we do.
Okay.
I think the way things are and the way things look like they're headed, we've got to work with people who are already at least half awake. I don't think there are people out there that literally just don't care about this stuff. Like all they see is the day to day, and I'm not necessarily saying that these are people who are struggling or people who are on the breadline or whatever. There are people that are doing very well in this system and like it exactly the way it is, and they don't care. And I just think a lot of Pan-Africanists, we seem to like waste a lot of time trying to wake up these masses of people who are sleeping and are happy to be asleep. And I just think our energies could be used better by just working with people who are already at least halfway there, so that we can just start working with that, because we're not going to attract anyone to this movement or to advances unless they start seeing some results, unless they start seeing some tangibles. And I just think the quickest route to that is to start working with people who are already on it. We ain't got time to waste waking up Tyrone, who just ain't got no interest in any of this,
I would agree.
But we do. But a lot of people do seem to want to take time to work with those, and I guess I can kind of understand it, but I don't know, man. Sometimes it just feels like we just don't have time for it.
No, I understand completely, 100%. And I would agree with you that some of the work that we do, it has to really be rooted in, of course, as you would argue, gaining some wins on the field. But I would argue, because I've done a lot of work in which I've been able to, I can argue. I mean, the facts are the facts. We've had wins. But the issue is now you got to put that out there for public consumption. People need to know these things.
Yeah.
So that people aren't thinking that this is just something that you philosophize about, but there's no tangible benefit to engaging in this type of work or ideology or worldview.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk to you about an idea for a project that I had, and I just wanted to see if it would be something you'd be interested in getting involved with. And it is just an idea at the moment. I haven't even thought about how to go about doing it. But like how Wikipedia works, where people can upload an article or they can upload some information about particular topics and things like that. And I was just thinking about just something around like Black history or Pan-Africanism or a single point website that's got like some literature that's been, reviewed or whatever, that people can just access,
Absolutely.
Make it so that it's they can then go through it at their own pace, and obviously would be relying on contributors to just, give up some time to write an article every now and then. But I'm just thinking like just something like that just helps to the people who are like me, who are curious about this stuff, but just don't know where to start. There's just a one-stop shop. I mean, I'm even happy if you want to take it and run with it, but like just a one-stop place where they can just get started on this journey, because and maybe that is how you help to get to the sleeping masses. But yeah, I don't know, man. It was just a thought that I had earlier this week, and I just thought it might be something you might be interested in.
Understood. Yeah, but I think I gave you my email, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just send me an email and we can build from there.
Definitely. All right. Yeah, cool. All right. Okay. I've got to go and help my mum do some stuff now. But yeah, I think the pen, I just think it just needs to be used in some sort of way where there's a plan and there's just something that we can use to leverage to try and just build something. But we just got to know what we're aiming for. We've got to know what we're working towards before we can even get started with that,
Right. Absolutely. But I appreciate you tapping in as always, brother.
No worries, man. I'll send you an email, yeah?
Okay. Very good. Very good. So, family, if you're watching, make sure you tap in. We're discussing Nnamdi Azikiwe, of course, the first president of Nigeria, one of the fathers of the Nigerian independence movement, one of the greatest Pan-Africans of the African independence era, who was influenced by the teachings of Marcus Messiah Garvey during his time here in the United States, attended several colleges and universities here in the States, and was a hell of an athlete as well, Olympic hopeful. But his claim to fame, of course, in terms of rising to notoriety and, of course, power in Nigeria, was the creation of the West African Pilot, anti-colonial newspaper that promoted radical politics and Nigerian independence. And so the question we're asking when we look at the life, legacy, and work of course, Nnamdi Azikiwe is, does the pen, and not the penitentiary family, but the pen, still have power? We're talking about the written press. Does it still have power? Can it still galvanize our people to engage in acts of racial consciousness, solidarity, to restore our people to our traditional greatness? So that is the question, family. Tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat, but definitely love to hear from you all. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment Initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, and Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. And this is part 5 of our groundbreaking and audacious 120. That's right, family. I say 120-part series, Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we're chronicling the life, legacy, and work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to make a better world for African people in the future. So this is part 5 of the Pan-African Leadership Series, where we're chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe from Nigeria, the most populous nation on the continent. And if I remember correctly, about 1 in 12 or 1 in 11 Black people in the world are Nigerian. So our brothers and sisters from Nigeria, they are holding it down as they always do. But once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation as we're discussing not only the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe, but also asking a question I think is important for the contemporary and political moment. Does the pen still have power? And we could talk about here just in the States, President-elect Trump is going to be returning to office. And we found a lot of Black people supporting him, even though, of course, he ran a campaign that's rooted in white nationalism. So the question is, does the pen still have power? Does the power of the written word, particularly written press, still have power in order to galvanize the people to engage in acts of racial consciousness and, of course, redemption? Sister Ely, what's the word? You got to unmute yourself. Need you to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay. So I've been listening and I disagree. I think the pen still holds power because documentation is everything. And then with everything going on and changes going on, I think that that's going to be important. Even if people aren't, picking up physical paper, there are resources for them to actually read these things.
So you're arguing like your smartphone.
Yes, I'm on my smartphone.
Okay. What about let's say digital media? So let's say if we move it away and we include digital media rather than just the pen. So I think of Roland Martin, right? Roland Martin, and I know a lot of people feel a certain way about Roland Martin, but just work with me here, family. Because most people argue Roland Martin is simply a Democratic shield, and I get that he advocates for Democrats, uh, bar none, right? Something I would argue no one does it more than him in terms of a black person. But what I do know is that he has a lot of factual information. When people come on the show and they're engaging in, sleight of hand or they're trying to mislead people, he's like, these are the facts I got on right here. And he at one point he was I think the editor of the Chicago Defender for 8 years. And many people know Chicago Defender is one of the oldest black newspapers in the country. And one of the best, right? As I stated before, the Chicago Defender was the preeminent newspaper that promoted the Great Migration, where after our brothers and sisters, our ancestors left the Deep South and came north. But he's used digital media, right, as a way of informing the masses. Do you think, and this of course for Sister Ely, but anyone else that wants to tap in, do you think digital media can play a role in, of course, galvanizing the masses of African people?
Yeah,
Okay.
but also, I mean, it's good to have that backup in physical paper because, I mean, we don't know the future, but if any warfare in the future is going to be through the web, through computers, through biological engineering and things like that. And to hold record for the future, I believe that documentation is important regardless of technology.
Okay. And that's a good point, because if you're on someone else's platform, they could just shut you down if they don't like what you're saying. So that is a good point. That is a good point. Anybody else want to tap in and be part of the conversation? Of course, we're chronicling, of course, a life legacy, and most importantly, we're centering the work. And let me break this down, family, why we're centering the work of great Pan-Africans of the past, because we don't want to get into the place of treating our ancestors as demigods, right? We understand, we want to honor them, we respect them, but we also understand that they're human beings and may have made mistakes, right? So we don't want to treat them like they're individuals that are immune to, doing things that are unbecoming or highly questionable, untoward. That's why we want to focus on the work that they've done and look at how we can use the work that they've done to build a better African world for a better world for African people in the future. So just want to make sure I squared that away in terms of why we're centering the work rather than focusing the work rather than focusing more so on their life and legacy, right? But and this is no disrespect, but because I think when we did the show on Y'all SoundCloud for the Sandman, who's of course a frequent contributor, wanted to talk about maybe her marriage, and it was like, yeah, we're not focused on that. We just want to focus on the work. She was about that life, and of course she was willing to go. She went to war and led that war against the British at the age of 60. So we want to make sure we're focusing on what they've done for the betterment of African people, rather than focusing so much on people's personal lives, right? Because this isn't celebrity gossip, right? So just want to make sure that we're making clear why we're focusing on the work of our ancestors rather than their lives and, of course, legacies. But once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. This is part 5 of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future. And we're chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe, one of the preeminent fathers and leaders of the Nigerian independence movement, a Pan-Africanist who was influenced by, of course, Marcus Garvey, well-traveled, well-read, well-educated, and of course, more than anything, he was a prince. He was someone who was committed to the redemption of African people, Africa for the Africans on the continent and abroad. And of course, his enduring legacy and work was the creation of the West African Pilot, an anti-colonial newspaper in Nigeria that really was the preeminent black newspaper in Nigeria, due to the fact that, of course, it was an anti-colonial newspaper that promoted radical politics, independence, and of course, had a women's page. So they made sure that they were including sisters in the struggle. And I think that was, and he, of course, Azikiwe was the editor of the West African Pilot from 1937 to 1947. And just briefly, I learned about Nnamdi Azikiwe because Baba Crow, anyone who knows me personally knows Baba Crow, Baba Larry Crow, who was one point the president of the Midwest region of ASCAC. If you don't know what ASCAC is the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. Of course, Baba Crow, of course, was a mentee of Dr. Jacob Carruthers, John G. Jackson, and of course, Dr. John Henry Clark. And of course, he also worked with Dr. Haki Madhubuti at Third World Press, and of course at the Institute of Positive Education. He named his son Azikiwe after what? In honor of Nnamdi Azikiwe. So that's how I came into learning about who Nnamdi Azikiwe was. And then of course I wanted to learn more. And so just give a shout out to the great elder, Baba Larry Kwaku Crow. He's a member of the Dayton Africana Elders Council. And so he's one of the individuals, elders, members of the community that I argue played a central role in helping me accomplish what I've accomplished in my academic career and being able to walk across that stage next month as a PhD. So definitely want to give a shout out to Dr. Baba Crow. He should be a doctor, but he didn't. He just decided to finish his education at the bachelor's level. But he's a doctor to me. But once again, the family just want to make sure that if you want to tap in, be part of the conversation. We're discussing, of course, the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe. This is part 5 of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we chronicle the life, legacies, and work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to make a better world for African people in the future. So tap in, family. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Definitely want to hear from you all regarding your thoughts on, does the pen still have power? Can we use the power of the pen? We're talking about the written word in the media, not the penitentiary, family, to, of course, galvanize African people, to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness. And if you're thinking about the penitentiary, family, we did a 3-part series on my platform regarding countering the carceral state. So if you want to check that out, you can. But we did a 3-part series on countering the carceral state on YouTube at Lumumba Speaks. So definitely you may want to tap in, check it out. We did a 3-part series. And I remember one of those series talked about when did Black people become the proverbial face of criminality. And we talked about that historically. We go back maybe just 80 years in this country. White people were considered the face of crime and criminality. We talked about public enemy number 1, public enemy number 2. We talked about, of course, the Al Capones, the Bonnie and Clydes, the Pretty Boy Floyds, right, Machine Gun Kellys of the world. The face of crime and criminality in the United States was, of course, white people, particularly white men. But that changed, of course, after the Civil Rights Black Power movement. We talk about the criminalization of Blackness. There's a great book that I believe was written by Elijah Muhammad's grandson, who's the former director of the Schomburg Center for Black Research. And we're going to be chronicling Arthur Schomburg, the Afro-Puerto Rican bibliophile. And of course, writer, he actually wrote for Marcus Garvey Negro World newspaper. So we're going to talk about Arthur Schomburg as well in this series, but it's going to be many shows down the line. Brother LMA, what's the word?
Hey, what's going on, Doc? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine, brother. Yeah,
man. I'm catching a little. I'm a little late. I think I caught the crux of like what you're trying to talk about today. Basically, yes, is the pen still mightier than the sword? Is that like kind of the topic?
Yes, sir.
I would say, obviously back in the day, written media, the press was the prime, obviously before television, before radio, you had to, that was like the only way you got information,
That's correct.
I feel that today, if you're just talking about just written media, it's, and I think it's good for some people, but I think it's just been crowded out by other forms of media. Obviously, television, but not even television, just the fact that you have, what's what I'm looking for? Video on demand. I think that that's, I'm not saying that people should stop reading, but I'm just saying that it's almost like, you got VHS in the world of Blu-ray DVD. I just think you can just,
Right.
yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah, I just feel that you can just do so much more with video, you know what I'm saying? Especially with video and clever editing. And, because like I said, even with text, you can, you have some great, amazing writers out there who could really suck you into their, world, and you can actually kind of feel, you can get that feeling from the writing. But I don't think that, what's what I'm looking for, holds a candle to actually having visuals. Like, like I said, like if we talk about, um, I guess for me, like, if you talk about, well, actually, let me see. Yeah, if you talk about like, okay, what's going on over there in the Middle East or whatever, right? It's one thing to someone to tell you about it, right? It's one thing to see it written in text, like a bomb was dropped on a village, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's another thing to see curated, images from like a, NBC or ABC, some type of embedded state-sponsored media. But it's another thing where you have video from a bystander, a bystander's phone, where you can hear and you can hear the screams, you can see the carnage, you can see the aftermath. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you can do much more with video on demand, with clever editing and person. Like I said, that what's the word I'm looking for? The phrase I'm looking for. On the street, what's it called? Street journalism or whatever. I forgot what's the word for. Like just someone just whips out their camera phone and just takes a video of something crazy. I forgot there was a term for it. I can't think of what the name of it is. But that's not to say that written word text doesn't have its place. I think that like I said, it's like I ain't gonna say it's an acquired taste, but it's kind of like the upper echelons of intellect still use writing. So that's like I think video on demand works great for the layman. You know what I'm saying? Particularly someone who they're interested or they may be interested in it, and they just don't have the time because a lot of people they work. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, especially like this job and my last job, I was on the road like I had like an hour commute. And then when I got to where I was going, I'm working all day. And when I get home, I'm ready to go to bed. So only time I have is that driving. Is that drive. I don't have enough time. I can't sit there and read a book or read. You know what I'm saying? I got to listen to it. So audiobooks and YouTube videos were like it made my that's why I kind of caught up on like the day's news was just on my drive, So, but I do think that the pen is still, good, but I think it's just outclassed by video on demand. That's just me.
Okay.
Because even I would like to say for me, I ain't gonna lie, what I'm saying, back in my day, I was a little bit of a conservative back in the day, and it was.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I was one of I wasn't like was it I was on the same level as like Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder, and I was on that tip.
Okay. I
know you don't like the C word, but I mixed it in. I was
you got me there. Go, but it's all good.
Yeah, I was on that tip, and like I said, I just saw one video, and that one video or the YouTube post or whatever literally turned my world upside down. And I haven't been the same since. So yeah, I think that like I said, it's So that's my thoughts on it. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Appreciate you, family. Anybody want to tap in and share or disagree with what Brother LMA had to say? He's still dribbling down in VA, right? But I think that's a good point there. That part of it, you can make the argument that the pen has to evolve to go beyond just the written word to, of course, various branches of media. So I can understand 100%.
But it's going to be tough though. But I think that like I said, you do have like Substack and Medium. What's it called? The website you're on. You're Medium, right?
Yeah, yes, I write on Medium.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. So I think there's definitely a place for the written, but like I said, I think just in today's kind of like busy world, like I think that video on demand, just audio books, stuff like that, just makes it so much more convenient. I tried my, I keep telling myself I need to just, take 30 minutes at the end of the day and just, I got like I got a whole bunch of books that I bought over the years, and I said, okay, let me go ahead and, start on this one. Let me finish this one. Let me finish this one. And I'll get to like a couple of pages and then something comes up and I'm like, damn, I worked late one night
Right.
and now just like, yeah. So I've been telling myself I need to finish up all these books I got, but
a lot of people,
like I said,
do the ebooks. Like I've seen people, they will get on it. Everybody knows I work out a lot, right? The gym is my second home, and they will literally, not figuratively, get on a treadmill for 30 minutes, pop in their earphones or earplugs, and they'll be listening to an ebook the whole time.
Yeah, audiobook. I used to do that a lot too. But like I said, I just do YouTube videos because I feel like, the topics are, usually more current.
Right.
And so I kind of like that. That's I ain't gonna lie, that's kind of like my vice that I'm kind of, addicted to the YouTube because I'll be on YouTube. If you let me, I mean, especially because there's so many creators now, I could be on that shit all day if
Right.
if I mess around. But because it's like so many topics now. But anyway, but like I just don't know how for like the average person who's busy, you know what I'm saying, unless you're just taking off time, especially someone who's not really, because like for me, my preferred method is, like I said, is video on demand, it's YouTube. So like for, because like I said, I can do it while I'm doing other things. You know what I'm saying? I can, while I'm driving, I can listen to a YouTube video. While I'm at work, I can just, when I got some downtime, I can just watch a little YouTube video, catch up on stuff. Like I said, but if I'm reading, like everything has to stop. I can't do anything else. I'm not the type of person who I don't know if it's even possible you can, read a book while doing something. I haven't seen too many people do that. I know I can't do it. So, but yeah, I think there's a place, but it's just going to be a very niche type of deal in the future coming up. So especially if education, if the trajectory of American education is going where I think it's going, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Mr. Sandman, what's the word?
Hey, what's the word? Happy Pan-African Thursday to you.
No, today's Wednesday, ain't it?
Oh, it's Wednesday? Damn.
Yeah, today's Wednesday.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Happy Pan-African Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Happy Pan-African Wednesday. Yeah, so the question you have is the pen mightier than the sword you asked? I mean,
yes.
I just checked that too.
Is it still relevant?
Yeah, I believe it's still relevant because I appreciate it, So maybe the new generation don't appreciate it as much, but some people just enjoy just sitting around, especially women enjoy just sitting around reading a book and allowing their imagination to go with the book. I think novels are more in vogue now. Me personally, when I read a book, I like to get to the meat of the information. And a lot of times, I guess, because, these authors have to fill up a certain amount of pages, they add a lot of fluff instead of getting straight to the point, which I like about articles. Instead, articles tend to get straight to the point.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And it also depends on the author and the editor. Are they good at, organizing the grammar of the book that makes it a smooth and nice and easy read? But I also like audiobooks too.
Okay.
And one thing I could never do, right, was sit down. I always told myself I wanted to sit down and read the entire Bible, And I said I could never do that. I mean, I every time I sat down, I could get through like one book, like a Genesis or something like that, Exodus. But to sit down and read the whole entire thing, man, that was hard. So what I did was I got the audio book and I listened to the entire Bible like 5 times, And I found that, when you're listening to it, you don't when you're listening to it, you don't retain as much information as if you was to read it. Or at least that's what I noticed.
Okay.
Yeah. But also about the video things that LMA was talking about. My son, he's in high school now, and what they're having the kids do is they're making video resumes. Have you heard of that before?
No, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard of video like interviews or I've heard of it before. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the future of it and stuff like that. Since we're going to this virtual world that's supposed to be coming up, they haven't, instead of writing or simply just writing your resume and everything that you could do, they want you to make a video of everything that you do. You know, because apparently your employer, it'll be easier for them to sit down and get an idea of exactly what you're all about based on the video that you present, as opposed to just reading some words in a resume. So yeah, it looks like a lot of that stuff is changing, but yeah. So why is the pen more mightier than the sword? Why was that question in relation to man, what's his name? Damn.
Nnamdi Azikiwe.
Yeah, Nnamdi Azikiwe, yeah.
Yeah, so he created, of course, the West African pilot.
Oh, right.
Right, newspaper, preeminent newspaper. That was, what really gave him power and fame in Nigeria, of course. And so, but the argument is it still powerful today? Right, because I think Brother LMA and even I think Snapchat Reviews kind of talked about how at the time this is the only way you got information was through the newspaper.
Right.
Yeah,
I read that he actually wrote for the Philadelphia Inquirer as well.
Okay.
And I recall growing up, when I was younger, that was my go-to every day. If I got on the subway, I would grab a newspaper from the stand and hop on the subway and go about my business, go to school, go to work, or what have you. When I was a young boy. Yeah, so I used to love to read those articles. Stephen A. Smith was a reporter in Philadelphia for a while. I used to enjoy reading his sports articles. But yeah, I didn't know it. I was reading that he was a columnist at the Philadelphia Inquirer. But yeah, you're right. Books was the way to get all your information back in the day. And I recall growing up, I probably had like a little touch of ADD, attention deficit disorder. So if you wanted to have me sit down and read an entire book, it'd have probably been difficult. And then with the way the world is going now, where everything's fast paced and right in your face, and everybody's on their smart devices, everybody's getting a little touch of that attention deficit disorder. Hello?
Possibly. Umar calls it "ain't no daddy in the home" disorder. So
yeah, ain't no daddy in the home disorder. Yeah,
and that's your boy. He from Philly. He from the Illidale.
Oh yeah. I mean, he probably right. You know what I'm saying? I got a son. You know what I mean? And if I don't know what it is. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes he'll sit there and go back and forth with his moms or something like that. And my wife would sit there and argue back and forth with this boy. I'm like, you don't argue with the child.
Right. You tell him what to do. Right.
You mean you trying to bargain? He's a child.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, eventually she started to see it my way. You know what I mean? But yeah, ain't no daddy in the home disorder. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but I had my father in my home, and I still had a little bit touch of ADD, but
right.
I had to fight through it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so that's the kind of what I wanted to get to. That you could make the argument that Dr. Umar Johnson's prescription of the issue is rather simplistic, but I do think there's some substance there to where oftentimes, if you have a father there are certain issues that you could you can deal with and hammer out to where it's not an issue. But if you don't have that strong disciplinarian there, that structure, that person who's going to set a standard and say, you got to follow this, you got to meet this standard, rise to this level, then it can create issues that typically don't exist. I could give an example. I know we're kind of getting off topic, but we're going to bring it back. But in terms of, and we could connect this to this concept about the power of the pen, but we talk about intellectual remissness, right? Let me turn my camera on. We talk about being intellectually remiss. So if you have a child growing up in a household in which you aren't creating a culture in which they develop a love of learning, then that person typically is going to have an anathema for learning and reading throughout their life. It's going to become part of their personality. So then, as a byproduct of that, what the person typically isn't, more likely than not, will not be a critical thinker. And that byproduct of not being a critical thinker is that what? You're easily manipulated.
Right.
Right. So we see that some of these issues, you can argue, are based on socialization or the lack of proper socialization, rather than something that is biological, neurological, or neurological in nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing though. But in today's world, with you can get a little bit too deep in the reading, and if these kids aren't mature enough in the real world, you know what I mean, they can get caught up going down rabbit holes that all these conspiracy theories. So that's
correct.
That's the issue too. You know, if they don't have real world experience and just, you know, books and articles and that's like that, then they don't have the maturity or the you know, the wisdom to it. Yeah, the common sense to apply what they learn in the books, you know.
Right.
So yeah, especially with especially with all of this wokeness stuff going on, you know.
What do you mean by that?
All right. So I was talking to my kid and he was like, well, the school, he said, no, what'd he say? He said, school teaches us to be slaves to the system. Blase blah. They're not teaching us to become part of the elite. They just teaching us to be the workers and that. He was like, he was trying to say, I don't need this this stuff. They're just trying to make me a robot, make me a part of the system.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing where he's he probably read that in one of the books, you know, philosophical books he read before, maybe even on the internet or something. But he don't know the application of what all of that means and the process of getting to where he wants to get to.
Right.
You know?
And that's why parents are important. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So I told him, like, hey, you know, yeah, there's disadvantages for people of color in this country, but the fact of the matter is you live in a country where you got time to ponder and think about, you know, rabbit hole stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I've been places where, you know, little kids walking in the desert barefoot,
Mm-hmm.
you know, ribs touching, you know.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta you gotta balance the two, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you shared that with your son. I think that's a great point. But LMA, any thoughts?
No. I think this was a great topic. Yeah. Like I said, I think I said holding my same points. I think video on demand has definitely, you know, like what is it? TV killed the radio, and then the internet killed the TV. I think it's going to be, you know, video on demand, social media, for better or for worse, is going to not kill, but push the pen to the side.
Yeah, let's say delete. You know, I don't want to get flagged.
Oh
yeah, because they big time, especially the topics I have on my show. But I agree with you.
Man.
I can recall having conversations with my late maternal grandfather, told me growing up he was born in the early 30s, and he told me how, as a child, they would listen to Joe Louis fights on the radio.
Yeah,
and he talked about at the time in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the sport that everybody wanted to be a boxer, not a basketball player, not a football player, not a baseball player, but a boxer, because Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, etc. Henry Armstrong, Sam Langford. That was a sport everybody wanted to engage in. So my grandfather was only like 5'8", but he was sturdy and strong and thick like a Joe Louis, Joe Frazier. So he shows me his boxing stance, and I'm like, damn, like he could left hook my ass right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, what the hell? All right, Grandpa, go ahead, sit down. Right? So this is way back when I was like 18, 19. But once again, he talked about the very thing you stated, that he said TV deleted the radio. Now, here's the wild thing about my grandfather. He would watch so he, of course, being from Dayton, Ohio, he was a huge Dayton Flyers basketball fan. UD Dayton Flyers because of the Wright Brothers created an airplane. So he would watch the game on TV, but mute the television and still listen to the game on the radio. It was like, what the type of backward?
Yeah. But
that goes to your point that, but that's part of how he was raised, that there was radio and not television. But it is a good point you talk about, of course, TV deleting radio and internet deleting TV. Because like now, when I watch like big time football games, I just go to YouTube and watch YouTube on my TV.
That video on demand, nothing beats it, man. Because back in the day, you would have to sit there and wait for, like I said, sit there and wait for the show to come on Wednesdays, show to come on Thursdays. And if you missed it, you just missed it. You know what I'm saying? Now I can just watch it whenever. So hey, I have a very, very off topic question I want to ask you. Do you know what? Have you in your studies? Did you guys go over postmodernism?
We did. Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I've covered postmodernism. So
and
so I take it you've come across it a bit.
Yeah, I heard of it a long time ago. I looked into it a little bit, and then when Mr. Sandman brought up wokeism, and I was like, it was just like I was thinking to myself, like, is it? And now woke has become a pejorative. And I'm thinking to myself, like, and I had this thought like a couple of weeks ago. I was just like, man, like, what people are calling woke is not woke, it's postmodernism. Or postmodernism, the postmodernism crowd got a hold of the word woke, and now they have just commandeered it. Because, you always hear the saying that back in the day, like, we black people said woke, and then the other people got a hold of it, and now it's become a pejorative. And now, like, woke has been morphed into something that it was never intended to be. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if what is the postmodern influence on the modern use of the word woke? Like, I feel like they have their fingerprints all over it. I
think you're on to something. I mean, I came in contact with postmodernism, being a higher education student affairs doctoral student. I took classes on queer theory, and that's how I became familiar with it.
Because I looked it up a little bit. Like I just looked up, like, because I know that, like, Noam Chomsky, I'm familiar with him. He pretty much like criticized and ripped through the new one. And then there was another guy, Jenkins. What's his name? I think he's out of MIT, and he was talking about how queer theory and postmodernism and like its connection to how can I say, lovers of the children, and I was just wondering if you came across it. Like I said, totally off topic, so we can definitely leave that. But I think that might be an interesting show topic. If you just look into it and see, like, damn, like they really did just stole our word and repurposed it, and now they took a word that black people use for literally decades and now morphed it into something that's that's totally different. And so now when I see, like, people criticizing let's say bathroom usage by certain people, they'll call that woke, and I'm like, bro, that had nothing, what I'm saying? No one used woke in that term, in that sense 20, 30 years ago. What I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And we find that a lot, to where particularly people on the right, If they don't like something, they just call it woke. And you can even make the argument that on the left, a lot of people, they don't like something, they just call it white supremacy or Eurocentric. So we see individuals playing slick and loose with the application of the word.
Yeah, we got to guard our words much better.
Absolutely. Well, family, I appreciate you all tapping in to our 5th series in the Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we, of course, chronicle the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe, President Nnamdi Azikiwe. Our next show, we will be chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of Ella Jo Baker. So
Dr. Lamont?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to ask a quick question before you shut it down. Yeah,
Yes,
so I know that you against like criminals in the Black culture, but there has been a lot of notorious criminals in Black culture that has had a huge impact, and where we are today. Will you be covering any of those guys, like I don't know, like Bumpy Johnson and people like that, or some of the gangs?
No. So I would say that I am opposed to criminality and not the criminal, right? Because I would attack the behavior, not the person. So no, we won't cover Bumpy Johnson. You mentioned the gangs. What do you mean by the gangs?
Like some of the gangs that were, that had these uprisings. I think Bumpy Johnson had a gang. There was I think even Malcolm X might have been a part of some of those gangs. Like you might even consider like the Nation of Islam a gang, so to speak, because they were wrapped up in some illegal actions too.
Well,
so
yeah. Well, we did a 3-part series, and if you go on Lumumba Speaks, if you go on our YouTube page, we actually have a playlist, and we have a full playlist where we chronicle that 3-part series, Nation of Islam, community, or cult, or community.
Okay, yeah.
So you can actually, matter of fact, I could bring that up. I could show it to you all because some may have a trouble finding this information. So give me 1 second. I could bring it up. I'm kind of glad you made this segue. Let's see here. So if you go here to playlist, and let me share my screen. You go here, the Lumumba Speaks, and you can see here, Countering the Crossroads State. That was a 3-part series. We had Abrahamic Religions, Nation of Islam, Cult or Community, right? Pan-African Leadership Series, Traditional African Religions, and of course the podcast. So you can actually go in there and you can review the 3-part series on the Nation of Islam, Cult or Community.
Okay, yeah, good deal.
No problem. All right, family. Till next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on Black. Peace. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on Black. Peace.